Now let's see if I'm actually coming through. Hooray! Okay, and no more of the same end of the song looping, because I'm terrible at this. So I wish I had more to show for this particular stream, but seeing as CTP is dragging their feet on releasing the new Kronos changes to CC, my hands are kind of tied. So, and hi Fozzie. Uh, so what I'd like to do is, yeah, what I'm right now logged into the test server, and if I click around, you see that the interface is still the old interface. So none of the new changes have been pushed. If we go look at the reprocessing window, it all looks the same old, same old. So I won't be able to talk about the changes live and go through the stuff like I wanted to. But hopefully all the estimates I'm seeing are Wednesday. So tune in on Wednesday for sure. I might be doing a code stream on Monday. We'll see how real life work goes. And I can stream that when we get there. I'm in the process of trying to, I have half of a rewritten tool that I started back at the start of the year. And then I got extremely busy with real life work, and so I had to go ahead and make it. I might as well go ahead and take out the pieces that won't work going forward, like extra materials, and see what I can do to put in all of the new stuff in such a way that I can replace the scale of tools I try to use. The goal of everything I'm writing, tool-wise, is to make it something that you would, at a corp level, would be able to use. So 10 characters or more, and the kind of things you care about as an industry corp. So what I'd love to put in there is being able to leverage the map and see where are the cheapest places to build. Perhaps make it possible for, if you wanted to run a caravan kind of industry corp, what information you'd need to know to make those decisions, and otherwise keep kits, each individual pilot's kits straight, and try to do some accounting stuff. Unfortunately, there's a buttload of work to get from where I am to that. It'll probably be something like, this will be the back end, all of this work will be the back end, and then I'll have to go rewrite something as a top layer, so the back end will put out some data, and then the top layer will crunch that data and make it pretty, so that I can leverage things like D3JS and Bootstrap, but I honestly have no idea what I'm doing with UIs, and we'll make it pretty after we make it work. So instead, I'm going to go like I said, I'm going to go rehash what I did last Wednesday or Monday, where we went through the dev blogs line for line, sort of broke out all of the information. I figured anyone who can't make my late US stream would appreciate a Saturday or Sunday stream where it's not where I can go and rehash the data. So if you watch during the week, I'm going to go ahead and redo those streams here on the weekend is the theme. So if you want to rewatch it and maybe I add something extra, I'm not reading off of a script, so I might add a little tidbit here and there that I didn't before. But if you catch the week streams, you don't have to watch the weekend. If you catch the weekend streams, you don't have to watch the week stream. So that's the way it's going to be. So without further ado, since I don't have anything to show in game, we'll go ahead and start looking through the dev blog information. I went ahead and posted the blog that I put together with the minutes from Monday's stream, and I'm not going to go read off of that because that would be super boring. You don't want to hear me read my own blog all over again. But this should be useful to those who want to know about it. So if we go through the blogs in order, we start with the reprocessing changes, and a lot of people have already talked about the reprocessing changes. If you're not familiar as to why people are pissed about the reprocessing changes, people like Funky Bacon wrote particularly heated, um, a particularly heated response to the changes, seeing as his brand of work is getting particularly screwed. I definitely point you to that. I have a post on my blog that showcases like every single one of the ones I could find at the time, and I'll go ahead and post that in the chat room as well. The point to the changes is that I really think this sets the tone going forward for all of the blogs, for all of the industry changes in general. And that's first is that the idea of doing something exactly perfect is completely gone. Even if you went ahead and got the best station and the best refining and the best implants and the best skills and did everything right, you are still going to have waste. And that's for reprocessing, that's for manufacturing, that's for every research step. Everything is going to have a waste factor, and there's just no way to get around any of that. The second thing is that everything you knew before Kronos for industry you might as well assume that it's going to be wrong moving forward. It's useful to, instead of thinking, how do I have to change my industry operation, and instead think in terms of, how do I have to completely reapproach my industry operation. This is particularly any of the heavy solo manufacturing kind of jobs like Heavy Tech 2 or solo capital building are the two biggest ones who are going to be really looking at the way they do business. And then number 3 is that it's useful to remember that not every type of activity is going to be sustainable in every type of space. And so it's useful to think that you may still not be looking at Tech 2 production in nullsec, for instance, or you may not be looking at you may not be looking at low-sec capital production, even though we'll get back to that. I don't think that that's completely destroyed yet. And it's just useful to sort of throw away everything you thought originally and think about it again. It's a great chance to redesign the way you do things, and I think there's going to be a lot of space to do so, because if the forums are any indication, there's a bunch of rage quitting. So it's a HTFU moment, right? And so what the reprocessing changes do is twofold. One, it moves more of the mineral supply into the hands of miners. And 2, it breaks down compression into a much narrower band of viable things to do. The miner thing is extremely interesting because it's useful to remember that Eve is Eve because we have players create almost everything. Players mine the ore, players build the items, players trade the items, and that is an extremely you can't go anywhere else for that. So Uh, moving things back into the hands of miners means that we're going to see a lot more supply coming straight from rocks, and not much less coming from reprocessed mission loot. This should lead to a general uptick in prices for things like titanium and the low ends, and actually pretty much across the board. But it's not a drastic uptick. It's gonna. The last year has seen a steady rate of deflation in minerals, and this change stands to turn that basically around. So from a negative percentage to about the same percentage positive is the numbers I'm seeing. This means that miners are going to get better ISK per hour, and we're also going to see a serious choice for a lot of miners on, do I compress it or do I crunch it? The first gut reaction I know that everyone looked at when they looked at the reprocessing changes is that, oh, well, if I want to reprocess my anything, well, then I'm going to have to take it to the very best reprocessing line. So I'll have to go out, find a Minmatar station that I can dock at, and jump all my stuff out there, reprocess it, and jump it all back. The problem with that calculus is that you lose the compression factor, and so where getting it out there and reprocessed was easy, getting it back to your factory is going to be difficult. Titanium is extremely heavy. It's a real pain in the butt to work with. So it's not as simple as, oh, well, now I have to throw away everything and I have to go to nullsec. You could, and you could get 10% better yield than you get in high sec, but you would then probably have to build it into something in nullsec and then move that final product back to wherever you're going to sell it. And I don't know how much people really want to do that. That's a lot of extra freight. That's a lot of extra man hours to get that extra 10%. I'm sure some will. I'm sure that people who are doing T1 industry are really looking at it, and if they have rental opportunities, are weighing that right now. But I don't think that I think that's going to be a very small subset of people who actually do their work. And so the useful thing to think about here is that the other thing it breaks is the way that capital production has been done classically. Oops. So again, I posted on my blog a couple of images. One, the old way to do capital production, and then the way things are probably going to go in the new way things are done. And the second one isn't exactly right. It was made a little bit further back. Some of the numbers aren't quite right. But you get the general idea, is that we're going from this very solo chain that has basically one valid choice. Like, if you're producing things, you are going to buy raw mineral. The old way, you are going to buy raw minerals in JITA. You are going to build them into a compressed material. You are going to jump freight them out to your factory, and then you're going to build everything in an NPC station without any risk for essentially free. And the only thing stopping you from producing capitals 24/7 on as many characters as you can possibly have is just the ISK to get the BPOs. Like, the only balancing beam in this is to balance the throughput is really number of capital BPOs. And so it's useful to remember that in EVE, ISK is a really terrible balancing beam to try and use as an actual balance slider. Like, it doesn't matter if CCP sets a blueprint at a billion ISK or a trillion ISK or whatever that number is. It would have to be, if you went all the way up to a quadrillion, I guess we could start to say it was something worth balancing against. But ISK is cheap, and if ISK is the only thing standing between me and an activity I want to do, between me and a profit return, then all I have to do is do the ROI calculation, and as long as it makes sense for me, I'll just do it. Like, if it's a return on investment of 20% and it costs me 20 billion ISK to get started, well, if I can churn 20 billion ISK a week at 20%, it's only going to take, what, 10 weeks to get that all back? That's not a balancing beam. That's free money. that's a really cheap loan. So personally, I didn't do a bunch of the reprocessing and capital building previously. I never really had a corp and a place that really lined up well to do that. So I'm not particularly worried about it because it doesn't break what I do, but that's not much consolation to those it does. The next thing that came up was the manufacturing changes, and the top end's kind of, I mean, it's useful to know about. They're decent changes, but that's not the meat of it. That's the big changes here are the UI changes, which I like the way the pictures look. But the important parts are I can put a POS down anywhere, and slots are going away. So this means that pre-Kronos we had if you're doing industry, you can only really think of it two ways. I can only do so much, and then I have to buy a POS. I can only build so much, and then I have to buy a POS. Or if I want to research my blueprints, I have to buy a POS. If I really want to do copying and invention at any sustainable level per character, I have to buy a POS. And the way that, since we're getting rid of slots and we're only making it a cost analysis, well, now I can say, well, I can go and do copying where it's cheap, or I can do all of this in NPC space, and that's completely sustainable on a solo level, or a POS gets me something extra, and it's worth its value on its own merit. I don't have to buy a POS. I can choose to buy a POS. And the one change on here that did bug me was that so the big change here was that we're also going to have to, if you want to use a BPO at a POS, you have to risk it inside the POS bubble. And though I'm not against that particular change, I'm really glad to see some amount of PvP out there, some incentive for mercenaries to play POS Pinata if they are so inclined, for industrialists to put some skin in the game. I am extremely uneasy with the way that it was originally proposed, because it leads to a huge corp theft vulnerability if you're not extremely careful. And so it's a little hard for me to explain how I do my corporate industry, and I've torn down my POS stuff because I just haven't had the free time to actually run them. when I'm building components at full speed, I have 8 component manufacturing lines. And if I were to use them, all 8 of them now moving forward into this new design area, and I wanted to put the BPOs in there because BPOs would be, and I'll get to why I'd rather use BPOs than BPCs in this case in just a second. I would have to be able to move that whole chunk of blueprints from lab to lab. This means that if I'm going to share them with anybody, I have to give them the ability to move them from lab to lab. And if they have the ability to take it from one lab to put it in another, that means they have the ability to take that, put it in their cargo hold, and run off with my component library. And I know that the very first thing everyone's going to say is, okay, then use copies. But copies have their own problem. Every corp hanger has a maximum number of items in it at 1,500, and every container or regular cargo hold has a max of 1,000 items in it. And so if there are 10 components and 4 races, so I would need 40 different BPOs to copy, and then do 20 of each of those. So now I'm at 800 BPOs in a copy set. I'm right up against that maximum limit. So as much as I get the copy calculus, and I really like the way that they balance the numbers, I'm not going to use copies to replace my component library, because I will run up against the maximum number of items in a hanger constantly, and that is just too much of a pain in the ass to deal with, to try and juggle it between containers and try to make sure you have enough copies available to do all the components you want to build, and oh well, I'm actually short this many, so I have to run another set of copies. Ain't worth it. I'd rather risk my component library than copy, and I won't share it because I don't want my corp members to steal it. I'd really like a module that that was like a BPO library. That would be really great, so that I wouldn't have to move them around the POS. As long as they were inside the bubble, they could be used. I understand that that's probably not a sustainable idea, but I can go ahead and dream. We'll see when the POS changes actually hit, because again, I'm just at this point I'm still making it up. Nobody knows yet, so that's my only point on here that that I think is worth soapboxing. Otherwise, I really like the changes. They're great. They make a whole lot of sense to me personally. Moving on, we have the industry UI, and I'm going to save judgment on this one. The pictures are great. I like a lot of the features that are promised. The fact that we can reinstall an old job with one click is really great. You have no idea how many invention jobs I've installed, and I'm probably not even in the top tier of people who install a buttload of invention jobs, so thank you very much for the one-click install thing. Also, the in-game prototyping is a really great feature. The fact that you'll be able to build an idea like, oh, if I want to build this item in this system with these resources and this character in this station, you'll be able to do all the calculus in-game before you even buy a single item. And I think that's really great. I think that's a great spot to lower the incoming barrier for people. I'm hoping that the other changes... Actually, I'll get to that one in a second. should also make all of the calculus for doing that like way easier if you're only doing it solo. This doesn't fix if you're going to do a bunch of jobs for a bunch of people and you are the guy who's doing the freighter run to keep everybody in equipment, because it looks like everything's going to be do one job, set up one job, okay, make some notes about that job, clean it all out, set up another job. So you won't be able to build a kit, is the way I usually think of them. But without actually being able to put my hands on it, it's really hard to judge this thing. So I'm not going to put a bunch of pain on the UI stuff. It looks like it's going to be good. It looks like it's going to be understandable. We'll see when we get our hands on it. There's just no... I can't make any judgments until I get my hands on it. The next one was the researching changes, which I am an extremely big fan of. I think all of the changes were very good. The way that researching has gone pre-Kronos is that you could put infinite amounts of research on something, but that's only in service to get to a 10% material savings. And though, as I said on my Monday stream, I was a fan of using this as a stupid filter. So when my friends said that they were such big industrialists and then rattled off that they put a silly amount of research on a BPO, I could laugh internally at them. These changes are a really big breath of fresh air. It's like when we removed learning skills from the game. It's going to piss off some people. Everyone's going to have their blueprints look funny, and the math, it gets easier, but it changes, and changes bad, rar. But in all, I think this is a really great change. It was brought up in the industry panel at FanFest that some of the Tech 2 stuff is going to get a little funny. Again, I want to get my hands on it and actually see what the real changes are before I start getting mad about, oh, well, now it's 140%, negative 140% as opposed to a negative 135%. I think most of the changes are going to land at parity with today, but we'll see. It's all a big we'll see. If you hadn't read the blog, it's a really simple system now. You basically give your blueprint skill levels like you give your character skill levels, and each level takes an exponential time compared with the step before it. So I really like it. I think it's great. I'm hoping that I don't have to do a whole bunch of research on some of my component BPOs, but we'll see what happens when the changes hit. There was a paste bin that I got with most of the levels, so good. So you could go and see what it actually, you could do some of the calculus yourself. Unfortunately, it was a big dump of all of the supposed blueprints, whether they exist or not. So we'll see. I'm just happy that the math got a lot easier. The bonuses become a lot easier to understand. And I really, really like this change. It was brought up on Monday's stream that this change breaks a research as you go philosophy to blueprint research. Traditionally, people might say, oh, well, I will produce for a little bit, and then I'll research for a little bit, and then I'll produce on it for a little bit, and then research again for a little bit. And seeing as each step is going to get longer than the one before it, it's not as useful to think that way anymore. You can't say, oh, well, 10 points of research is a week, so I will go and produce it for a week, research it for a week, produce it for a week, research it for a week, and then I'll have a perfect blueprint in a couple of months. This doesn't let you do that anymore, unfortunately. But for that being the cost, I think the change is still extremely good. The other point that was brought up was copying is going to become more efficient than manufacturing as far as per unit output. Previously, the way that the equations worked is that if you were copying one run, it would take significantly longer than producing one run. This is evident in the capital blueprint kits. If you wanted to copy a freighter, for instance, you're looking at a 30-day copy time, but a 7 or 8 day production time. So you could produce 4 times more freighters than you could produce copies for them. And now we're going to see things you can make a copy slightly faster than you can make an actual run of the thing. This is going to impact invention. It changes the way I do things. I have a huge backlog of BPCs because the time to copy them and the time to invent them are so completely different that it was useful to just have enormous stockpiles of BPCs because they're essentially free. And now going forward, well, I won't have to be I won't need as much copy bandwidth to meet my invention bandwidth. This means that if you are doing a cooperative T2 manufacturing line, you need, right now the way I have it calculated is usually you had 1 copier to 4 inventors, depending on what you're doing. I have 1 to 8. I think it's going to become closer to 1 to 10, 1 copier to 10 inventors. And it also is going to put the BPC copy pack people out of business because their throughput's going to get so much higher. The price per kit is going to get a lot lower. It might be useful to start thinking about producing off of these copy kits, since originally the price to DIY with a copy kit was more than the price to just buy it off the market in a lot of cases. I wonder where that's going, or if it's just going to go away because it's going to be too easy. Nobody's going to demand it. We'll see. The next blog was about the job cost calculation, and I spent all day with this blog yesterday. Since I'm trying to write a tool that is a little more sturdy than just what is my cost today, I'd like to be able to look at the entire universe and say, where should I put my factory this week is sort of the question I'd love to be able to answer. I still think that having a caravan factory thing is going to be extremely difficult, but I think it might just become almost a thing now. So I'd like to be able to be on the cusp of that if it's a thing. The equation is a little bit messy. Oops. The full production thing is going to work off of fraction of global production hours. So how many production hours are happening in that system out of the entire Eve universe. The next one is a facility reduction off of how many factories are in the system. I'm a little still unclear on that one. And then the third major reduction is how long are you running that job? The longer the job, so the more runs you run on that job, the cheaper the job will become. So those are the three major ones. And then additional modifiers like outpost bonuses and POS bonuses and faction warfare bonuses, and I don't know if we're keeping the dust bonuses. That wasn't covered here. All of those will be part of your calculus as well. I got trolled yesterday by Nullabor that the equations are going to be easy and I need to not think so hard about them. But again, I want to be able to... I don't just want to take a number from CCP and run off of like the final run modifier, like if all of the three global ones were put in there and then have to calculate it. I'd like to be able to make the same estimates out of game that the in-game tool will provide. I'd like to provide parity with that in-game tool out of game is another major goal. Purebit asks if we're still going to see more people building from POSes and HiSec. That one's a little bit hard to judge because we have the ease of getting a POS is becoming the getting a POS today has been difficult because you need standings, and there's been system restrictions, and if you're going to drop down one, well, you might as well drop three down just in case you need them later. So I think that the number of active towers will increase. No. The number of active towers should stay flat, though they should get smaller. The number of corps with a POS should increase. The number of POS per corp will decrease. And since the number of moons that are available to produce that should go way up, I don't know how much people are going to fight over it. There's still going to be a material efficiency bonus for using a POS, which is, with the install cost, is going to be a huge factor, a huge place to save money. We're still going to keep the efficiency, the time efficiency bonuses that POS get, which, if you're a serious builder, are still extremely useful. It'll save you from taxes, which I don't expect to be that big a deal, but we'll see where they land. Though they still won't save you from the install cost equation. And one thing I also want to say about the run cost equation is I don't like the fact that it's using the price of output to do its calculation. I'd really rather it do the price of inputs. My personal case being, if you're producing the new shipskin BPCs, you're going to pay the markup. You're going to pay the 5% of the hull cost again to put the paint job on. And I was under the impression that the paint jobs were supposed to be free, except for the Aurum to buy the BPC. So if we went off of input costs would be 0. Still, the paint job would be essentially free, except for taxes or a delivery cost. I don't like I don't want those to be expensive. I also don't like the idea of the loyalty point store blue BPCs becoming expensive to produce off of. I think that's going to really break a lot of the calculus with using those, especially since most of them still have the raw item available on the market on the loyalty point store. I'd still like there to be the calculation of, well, I could just build it, and oh, well, these tags are cheap enough, and the 5 run makes sense, but if you're going to do 5 runs of Caldari Navy heavy launchers, and you're going to pay 5% on the 50 million per item, and you paid for all of those tags, I don't know if you're really going to want to produce that blueprint anymore. Whereas if you use the price of inputs, well, the input materials for that blueprint are mostly negligible, and so an added 10, even the 14% maximum adjuster, you don't care about, because you're only putting in a fistful of minerals, and I'd really rather it be the cost of inputs. I think the cost of inputs makes a lot more sense than the cost of outputs. I understand that doing the cost of inputs is technically harder, but it's not way out there. The rest of the tool can see it, so why would it be that particularly hard? And the last part is I'm a little afraid of this particular job cost thing, mostly because it's going to be a complicated mechanic, and it's going to be hard for players to wrap their head around estimating that elsewhere. I know that we're getting an API. I know that we should be able to get really close to these numbers, but as it stands right there, if I'm a new player, I would really love to be able to understand where those numbers are coming from, what I can do to reduce them, and I think that this is close to a good idea. I just worry that there is a lot of modifiers, and so optimizing a lot of modifiers might turn more casual industrialists off. That's my only concern there. The next one was teams, and I think I want to like teams. I really do. I know a lot of people were expecting this to be a cooperative mechanic where you could enlist your friends to be your team. I mean, that's still kind of cool, but in honesty, I like this a little bit better. The idea of a scarce resource that is randomly generated that can be that extra edge you need to edge out your competition, I think is extremely useful. So if you're like me, for instance, I like building bombers, for instance. And if I say, well, I'm going to go build so many bombers in a week, if I can get a team that helps augment my material efficiency on those bombers, well, then I stand to win big time. I can come to market with bombers that are 10% cheaper than everyone else's. Those all end up as profit on top of the cost to get it. I like the idea. I don't like the implementation here at Kronos. I do like the iteration targets. I think the iteration targets are extremely promising. I like the idea of making your own, so that if there is a particular one I want to cultivate, I can go make them. Or a whole sub-profession of team builders that can make the teams so that I don't have to spend my time. I can just give somebody my money. I also would prefer if the assets were more private. I would like to be able to um, bid out a system and say if I can beat the system bid as a corporation, uh, get them for just my corporation. Um, this came up in the industry panel as well, and I want to say it was Grayscale. I can never remember who the one with the funny hair is. Was really non-apologetic with the alarmist who said, "Well, these are all just going to go to nullsec because they'll just team up and bid for it." And he's like, "Well, except that if everyone in a system throws in a little bit of ISK, you can quickly outprice anyone in nullsec who might want them." I think it's going to be really interesting. It again incentivizes group industry. And I forgot to go back to one of the major points on the manufacturing blog, but I'll get back to that in a sec. I like the changes. I worry that we're not going to see much of teams in Kronos. And I'm really looking forward to an API to be able to leverage that information because I want to be able to plan ahead of time. Oh, a team came up. I need to bid for that. Or, oh, where is that team right now? Maybe I want to chase it down. And, oh, I can just move my manufacturing 2 systems over and I can get a team that I really want. But I don't have the time to do that in-game, but I do have time to check at lunch at work. Oh, hey, so-and-so team is two jumps away. Oh, I should probably move, da-da-da. And now I have a plan that I could go in when I log in and just do it. That's where I want to go with teams. Regner BA has been, Fox 4 has been extremely vocal that there will be APIs, just not when there will be APIs. The stuff I've heard from him and through the little bits of forums I've seen is that we should expect a job cost modifier API, the stuff to do the job cost calculation should be released soon after Kronos. And then the Teams Crest API is going to take longer, but I'm hoping end of summer, most likely before the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I don't know how I'm going to go leverage that to like put it in a spreadsheet because I don't think that Crest stuff is going to work really well for spreadsheets, but we'll get there. The last point I want to touch on before I leave is, where is it? I am kind of pissed about this this matrix. I think it unfairly denotes that manufacturing and research is only a solo activity. And I'm biased. I ran 2 cooperative industry corps. I've helped people set up their own. I've designed my tools around a cooperative industry. And I really think it's an unfair metric here in the co-op gameplay thing to write off industry as not being cooperative. I don't know if it's a goal to make it cooperative. I think a lot of the changes pull both ways, where one change is like, oh yeah, no, it'll be great to work with as a group. If you can get a team, you can coordinate your bids, you can get a team on the cheap and get it in your system, and use that bonus. But on the other hand, well, if I'm going to go use a POS, well, I don't want to lose my BPOs that I'm putting in there. Why would I put anyone else in my corp? I might as well just have a solo POS corp and run the risk of getting war decked. And if I get war decked, I'll just tear down the POS and I'll go set it up somewhere else because I don't care where it's set up. I can go get another moon because I can set this up anywhere the heck I want. So I think that there's a major push-pull against the solo industry, and I think it's pulling harder towards solo industry. And I think that that's a loss. I think that there's a benefit for heavy manufacturing in groups. And again, it's my bias coming through. I work, and my job in real life is managing, part of it is managing a production floor. And the amount of work to make sure that you have the tools to handle the throughput and deal with when a tool goes down, moving equipment around to get it repaired, and sharing that equipment between other projects so that they can get their throughput handled, and dealing with the capital expenditure of, do I buy a new tool when it costs me $1 million to buy a new tool? Can I justify that cost? And if you go, I really encourage anyone who's interested in a more difficult supply chain to look at how a silicon wafer is made, and the amount of different tools they go into and steps that get recycled, and the amount of planning to keep all of this throughput through when one tool is fast and one tool is slow, and this tool has to be used at every step, but they cost $10 million a tool, so we really can't be buying as many as we'd want. And having this whole optimization game of trying to put it all together, and when one part fails, how does the rest of the line keep moving? Because you can't just stop production because it takes 8 weeks for a wafer to go from the start to the end of the fab. And I think that there's a great opportunity to do cooperative industry in an environment like that. And I think some of the changes are getting us closer there. But I think POS factories are going to become much smaller, and we're going to have a lot less research modules and building modules out there in space, and I think that's a loss. We'll see when we get there. I honestly don't know until I can put my hands on it. Like I said at the start of the stream, I expect to see Kronos out on Wednesday, I hope. Fingers crossed. And I'll go ahead and stream that, record that, post it on my blog, post minutes for anyone who missed it. But in the end, I like the changes. I don't have any control. Either I like the changes or I don't play the game. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people who are willing to put in the work. And I think a lot of the people who were thinking that there was an easy mode industry are going to be really pissed. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions, because I've basically got through all the blogs, except for the Tech2 Venture announcement, but seeing as I don't mine a whole bunch, I don't have a bunch to talk about on that. Yeah, I'll just open it up for questions. Really? Nothing? No comments? No witty words from Fozzie about how terribly wrong I am? I don't feel like this one was as good as my Monday one. You should really all just have watched the YouTube. I really encourage anyone who has not done industry before that this is a great chance to get on the ground floor of a completely new industry system. So it would still be useful to get the traditional industry skills up. Production efficiency 5 is a big one. Mass production, advanced mass production, laboratory operations, advanced laboratory operations, science, research, and metallurgy. I think that there's going to be a lot of great opportunities. And also, one of the things that reminds me of a point that I forgot to make is that so the cost of production is going to become very squishy. Traditionally, the way that everyone has just assumed it is that I, as a producer, I can make a spreadsheet, I can figure out how much it's going to cost me to build, there aren't a whole bunch of extra costs, I can just take it to market, and I can get my money basically guaranteed. And then traders even had their own spreadsheets to say, oh, well, that's so much of a markup, I guess it's a good deal, or, oh, no, that's undervalued, let me buy that up. And do that. So both sides, both supply and demand, were able to know the exact price of something and do business knowing that exact price. Moving forward, that equation is going to get way grayer. Though we will still have the raw material cost of doing production, there's going to be added fudge factor for, did I use reprocessed minerals? Did I do it in, did I, like, okay, we'll take capitals, for instance. Did I pay a premium for the compressed ore because I wanted to still be able to produce a lot of capitals and still use compression, so I should use ore. What was the markup on the ore I used? And then when I reprocessed it, did I have null-sec stations with better reprocessing skills, or did I use low-sec and maybe a POS? And then, oh, well, null-sec is probably, if I did it in null-sec, I'm probably going to pay a higher, I'm going to have a worse multiplier for manufacturing lines than I do in low-sec, because low-sec should have more NPC stations to move that modifier around. Am I using a POS to get the ME bonus twice, once for the components and then once for the final product? So you're going to end up with a huge fudge factor where I go, well, I mean, the cost of materials is that, but only an idiot would sell his thing for the cost of materials. At a billion-esque with a 10% markup for install costs alone, not to mention maybe a 5% cost of business for the compressed ore, plus another 5% loss versus null-sec and low-sec, versus maybe a 5% bonus in ME and doing it in low-sec. I mean, we're looking at like another 15% of completely gray cost that no buyer will be able to know what the producer actually paid. I think it's interesting. I think we're going to drive more towards a supply and demand economy. I also worry that producers will just stop producing, and we'll see much more prevalent market collapses. Um, we'll see. A lot of the floors are also coming away where I could say, oh well, if I reprocess that, it's worth this, and so now the floor has moved down 25% thanks to the reprocessing, scrap reprocessing changes. So if I went ahead and produced a bunch of stuff that I can't actually sell, I can't reprocess it. I got to take a loss somewhere. If I reprocess it, I'm going to take a way bigger loss than if I just sell it to buy orders or something. So I think we're going to see more volatility. I think some of that volatility is dangerous. I worry about some of the markets, but we'll see. We won't know until the patch hits. I think there's going to be enough stockpiled before the patch that we won't have to worry about the real implications until maybe the end of summer. Since that's the way these big announcements tend to go. Even Odyssey's moon material changes didn't really completely wash out of the system until after 6 VDT. We'll see. It's going to get interesting, and I'm hoping that fudge factor means that someone with less skills can go a little bit further out of the way and still compete with the big boys who are maybe get a bonus to how close they are to market because they can afford the extra ME or the extra cost that the ME that the newbie player isn't paying. So we'll see. Any more questions? Any more comments? Inputs? Tell me I'm completely wrong, that I should be worried and the sky is falling. No more? That's everybody? Everybody's happy? Was this actually entertaining for anybody? I worry that there's like 20 guys in chat and not getting any feedback, but whatever. If that's the case, then I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream for maybe 15 minutes, get the stuff started to process the stream and get it started pushing to YouTube. And after that, I'm going to start the stream back up again and start working on code work. Hopefully, I'd be really happy if we can get the new SDE out sooner rather than later, but I can talk about some of the design and you guys can see what a terrible, terrible coder I am. The rest of this afternoon streams are going to be pretty boring and dull. But I really appreciate everybody who came out. Again, if you have anything, any direct questions or more in-depth stuff, check out the blog. It's down in the channel information. Check out my Twitter handle. It's up on the screen. It's the same as here. I can be reached through direct messages, G+. I bet you could even find my actual email address off of most of that and totally real stock me. I hope this has been useful for everyone. I might cancel Monday's stream because, well, if Kronos isn't released, I don't really think I can go through the exact changes all from the top again, all over again. But we should see. I'll see what I can do. I want to thank. Now I've forgotten his name again because he's been helping me and I'm a butt. I want to thank Salpoon if he's here. He's stepped up to help me do pre-stream setup with pauses and stuff. And that should make it easier for me to go through all of the steps and go, well, here's how it works in a station, here's how it works in a pause, here's how it works in low sec, here's how it works in null sec. And I really appreciate the help. If you want to help, get in contact with me either on the blog or through direct message through either the blog or Twitch or wherever, and I will send you information on how to get set up on the test server with me. Hopefully, I don't have to deal with rights as they push out new builds, but we'll see how it goes. It should be reasonably easy. Again, thank you for being on the stream. It means a lot to have you guys all watch as I don't even stream a game. But I'm hoping that these streams get more interesting. There's also a calendar up on my blog that shows the stream schedule. As things get added or taken away, they'll be added there. And also keep in mind, I'm talking to some people about being guests on the stream to work through the changes with me. Hoping to have K162 Space, Blake Armitage on the stream. I've been talking to Stupid Genius from Cap Stable, and Fuzzy Steve, maybe, I hope, fingers crossed, might be on the stream as well. It all depends on when I can get people's schedules to work out. There's only so many days until the patch hits. I'd like to be doing lots of streams. I got new freaking computer hardware just to do it. So thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you guys when I see you guys.